You've labeled her toxic, manipulative, emotionally abusive, unstable. You've told your friends she's crazy, that she's the problem, that you need to get away from her drama. But what if I told you that everything you hate about her, every toxic trait that drives you insane, is actually a mirror reflecting the darkest parts of yourself that you refuse to acknowledge? You're about to discover one of Carl Jung's most disturbing psychological theories, one that will completely shatter how you see every toxic woman you've ever been involved with. This isn't about defending bad behavior or making excuses for genuine abuse. This is about understanding why you keep attracting the same type of difficult woman over and over again, and why your attempts to fix or escape her always fail. The pain you feel in these relationships, that suffocating sense of being manipulated, controlled, or emotionally drained, it's real. But the source of that pain isn't what you think. According to Jung, the woman you call toxic is actually embodying your own shadow, the repressed and denied aspects of your psyche that you've spent your entire life running from. And until you understand this dark psychological dynamic, you're condemned to keep attracting women who force you to face what you refuse to see in yourself. Today, you'll finally understand why she triggers you so deeply, why her behavior feels so intolerable, and most importantly, why you can't seem to stay away despite knowing she's bad for you. The solution isn't to diagnose her or fix her or even leave her. It's to finally turn inward and face the shadow she's been reflecting all along. To understand why that toxic woman appeared in your life, you first need to grasp one of Jung's most fundamental concepts, the shadow. Your shadow isn't some mystical force. It's everything about yourself that you've repressed, denied, or hidden away because it doesn't fit with who you think you should be. It's every trait you've judged as unacceptable, every emotion you've labeled as weak, every impulse you've condemned as wrong. Think about how you've constructed your identity. From childhood, you learned which parts of yourself got approval and which parts got punished. Maybe you learned that anger was bad, so you became the guy who never gets mad. Maybe you learned that neediness was weak, so you became hyper-independent. Maybe you learned that jealousy was ugly, so you became the cool, detached boyfriend who doesn't care. But here's what you need to understand. Those rejected parts didn't disappear. They went underground, into what Jung called the shadow. And the shadow has a fascinating quality. Whatever you refuse to see in yourself, you'll be forced to encounter in others, especially in the women you're most intensely attracted to. This is the dark secret of attraction that nobody talks about. You're not just drawn to a woman's positive qualities, you're magnetically pulled toward women who embody your own repressed traits. The very characteristics that make her toxic in your eyes are the characteristics that live in your shadow, desperately seeking acknowledgement. Let me paint you a picture of how this works. You pride yourself on being rational, logical, always in control of your emotions. You've spent years perfecting this image of the stable, grounded man. Then she enters your life, emotional, unpredictable, ruled by her feelings. She cries at the drop of a hat, makes decisions based on intuition rather than logic, expresses her emotions with an intensity that makes you uncomfortable. You tell yourself she's too emotional, that she's unstable, that she needs to get herself together. But what's really happening? She's embodying the feeling function you've repressed. She's living out the emotional life you've denied yourself, and that's precisely why she both attracts and repulses you. She represents the parts of yourself you've disowned. Or consider another scenario. You see yourself as independent, self-sufficient, someone who doesn't need anyone. You've built walls around your heart, convinced yourself that needing others is weakness. Then you meet her, clingy, needy, constantly seeking reassurance and validation. Her dependency drives you crazy. You label her as insecure, as having attachment issues. But why does her neediness trigger you so intensely? Because deep in your shadow lives your own disowned dependency needs. The little boy who wanted to be held, who needed reassurance, who craved connection. You buried him long ago. And now she's here, acting out all those needs you've forbidden yourself to feel. Her toxicity is your shadow made manifest. This dynamic becomes even more intense when we look at control. You might see her as controlling, manipulative, always trying to change you or tell you what to do. But examine your own behavior honestly. How much of your life is about maintaining control? How tightly do you grip your emotions, your schedule, your environment? Her obvious control patterns might be triggering because they mirror the subtle control patterns you refuse to acknowledge in yourself. Here's where it gets really dark. The more violently you reject a trait in yourself, the more dramatically it will appear in the women you attract. If you've completely disowned your capacity for jealousy, you'll attract intensely jealous women. If you've rejected your own manipulative tendencies, you'll find yourself with women you perceive as master manipulators. If you've denied your own emotional volatility, you'll attract women whose emotions seem to explode without warning. This isn't coincidence, it's psychological law. Jung called this phenomenon shadow projection, and it's one of the most powerful forces shaping your relationships. You're not consciously choosing these women, but your unconscious is magnetically drawn to them because they offer you something essential, an opportunity to finally face and integrate your shadow. But instead of recognizing this opportunity, what do? You try to fix her. You attempt to make her more rational, less emotional, less needy, less controlling. You essentially try to force her to repress the same traits you've repressed in yourself. And when she resists, because of course she resists, you label her as toxic and either suffer through the relationship or leave, only to attract another woman with remarkably similar, toxic traits. The pattern repeats because the shadow doesn't care about your conscious choices. It will keep manifesting in your relationships until you finally pay attention. Every crazy ex-girlfriend, every toxic relationship, every woman who turned out to be manipulative or unstable, they're all messengers from your shadow, trying to show you what you refuse to see in yourself. Think about your relationship history. Notice how the same complaints appear again and again. She was too emotional. She was too controlling. She was too jealous. She was too dependent. These aren't random women who happen to share the same flaws. These are shadow projections, showing you the consistent themes of what you've repressed in yourself. The shadow also explains why these relationships feel so intensely charged. When you're with a woman who embodies your shadow, you're not just relating to her. You're in a relationship with the parts of yourself you've rejected. The intensity of your emotional reactions to her behavior isn't really about her at all. It's about the internal conflict between your ego, who you think you are, and your shadow, who you actually are in totality. This is why logical arguments don't work with her. You can explain rationally why her behavior is problematic, but it doesn't change anything because you're not really talking to her. You're arguing with your own shadow. And the shadow doesn't respond to logic. It responds only to consciousness and integration. Now we arrive at the most painful truth you'll have to swallow. The relationship with a toxic woman isn't actually a relationship between two people. It's a battlefield where you're at war with yourself. Every fight, every frustration, every moment of feeling manipulated or controlled is actually your ego, desperately trying to maintain its idealized self-image against the onslaught of your shadow material that she embodies. When you judge her as toxic, what you're really saying is, I refuse to acknowledge these traits in myself. When you try to change her, what you're really attempting is to continue your lifelong project of repression. When you feel disgust at her neediness, you're experiencing the disgust you feel toward your own dependency needs. When her emotions overwhelm you, it's because they threaten to break through the dam you've built against your own emotional life. Here's the moment of devastating clarity. Her toxicity isn't hers, it's yours. She's not bringing drama into your life. She's revealing the drama that already exists within your psyche. She's not manipulating you. She's showing you the ways you manipulate yourself and others while maintaining plausible deniability. She's not emotionally unstable. She's demonstrating the instability that comes from trying to live as half a person, denying entire aspects of your humanity. The reason you can't leave her, even when logic tells you to run, is because you're not really in a relationship with her. You're in a relationship with your shadow, and the shadow won't be abandoned. It will follow you from relationship to relationship, growing stronger and more insistent with each woman who embodies it, until you finally stop running and turn to face it. This is why every attempt to fix or change her fails so spectacularly. You're essentially asking her to help you continue avoiding yourself. You're demanding that she repress the very qualities, that your unconscious drew you to her to experience. It's like hiring someone to help you see your blind spots and then insisting they wear a blindfold. The most shocking revelation is this: the more you judge her toxicity, the more you reveal your own shadow. Every criticism you level at her is a confession. Every toxic trait you identify in her is a disowned aspect of yourself demanding recognition. She's not your problem. She's your psychological salvation dressed up as your worst nightmare. When she acts out your shadow material and you react with intense emotion, anger, disgust, frustration, contempt, you're not reacting to her behavior. You're reacting to the mirror she's holding up, showing you the face you refuse to claim as your own. Your emotional intensity is proportional not to her toxicity, but to how deeply you've buried these traits in yourself. You now stand at a crossroads that determines not just your romantic future, but your psychological wholeness. You can continue the cycle, leave her, find another toxic woman, repeat the same patterns, and spend your life running from your shadow. Or you can finally stop, turn around and face what she's been trying to show you all along. The real work isn't about her. It never was. The real work is about investigating your own shadow. What traits in her trigger you the most? Those are your primary shadow material. What behaviors make you feel superior to her? Those are the behaviors you've most violently repressed in yourself. What aspects of her personality do you find most intolerable? Those are the aspects of yourself begging for integration. This doesn't mean accepting abuse or staying in genuinely harmful situations, but it does mean taking radical responsibility for your part in the dynamic. Instead of asking, "Why is she so toxic?" start asking, "What is her toxicity revealing about my shadow?" Instead of trying to fix her emotional volatility, explore your own relationship with emotions. Instead of condemning her neediness, investigate your own dependency needs that you've buried beneath false independence. The cure begins with a simple but profound shift. Stop diagnosing her and start diagnosing yourself. Every judgment you make about her is an invitation to explore that same quality within yourself. Not to judge it, not to fix it, but to acknowledge it, understand it, and ultimately integrate it into your conscious personality. Here's what shadow work actually looks like in practice. When she does something that triggers you, pause before reacting. Ask yourself, how do I do this same thing? Perhaps in more subtle or socially acceptable ways. When you feel superior to her emotional expression, ask, what emotions am I not allowing myself to feel? When her neediness repulses you, ask, what needs have I forbidden myself from expressing? This isn't about becoming like her or excusing problematic behavior. It's about becoming whole. When you integrate your shadow, you don't become toxic, you become complete. You stop attracting women who act out your repressed material because you're no longer repressing it. You develop the ability to see women as they actually are, rather than as screens for your shadow projections. The man who refuses to integrate his shadow will always be dominated by women who force him to see it. You'll spend your life feeling victimized by toxic women, never realizing that you're the common denominator. You'll exhaust yourself trying to find a woman who doesn't trigger your shadow, not understanding that the shadow will simply project itself onto whoever you're with. But the man who does the shadow work, who turns inward and faces what he's been running from, breaks free from this cycle. He stops attracting the same type of woman because he's no longer the same type of man. He's no longer split between his ego ideal and his shadow. He's integrated, whole and complete within himself. The irony is profound. When you stop needing her to be different, she often changes, not because you fixed her, but because your shadow projections stop distorting who she actually is. You might discover that the toxic woman was actually just a human being carrying her own wounds, and your shadow projections made her seem far more malevolent than she ever was. Now I need to hear from you. What traits in women trigger you the most? What patterns do you see repeating in your relationships? Can you identify the shadow material that might be drawing you to these women? Share your revelations in the comments below. Your honesty might help another man recognize his own shadow projections. If this video shattered some illusions about your relationship patterns, hit the like button. It helps other men find this crucial shadow work that our culture desperately needs. Subscribe and ring the notification bell to continue this deep dive into Jungian psychology and how it shapes our romantic lives in ways we rarely understand. Check out our previous videos where we've explored other hidden psychological dynamics that control your relationships without your conscious awareness. The journey into shadow work isn't comfortable, but it's the only path to genuine freedom and authentic relationships. Remember this, she was never the problem. She was the messenger. The toxicity you saw in her was your own shadow crying out for acknowledgement. The pain you felt in the relationship was the pain of your own self-rejection reflected back at you. The solution was never about finding a better woman. It was always about becoming a more complete man. Your shadow will keep knocking at your door, dressed up as toxic women, until you finally let it in. The question is, how many more relationships will you suffer through before you realize the call is coming from inside your own psyche? How many more women will you blame for showing you what you refuse to see in yourself? The mirror is in front of you. She's holding it steady, showing you everything you've hidden from yourself. You can keep smashing mirrors, keep running from reflection to reflection, or you can finally really look at what's being shown to you. Your wholeness is waiting on the other side of this recognition. The integrated man doesn't fear toxic women because he's integrated his own toxicity. He doesn't attract shadow projections because he's made his shadow conscious. He doesn't need to fix or change anyone because he's done the work of fixing and changing himself. This is your invitation to stop running and start integrating. Your shadow isn't your enemy. It's the missing piece of yourself you've been searching for in all the wrong places. And she's not toxic. She's just the mirror brave enough to show you who you really are when you strip away all the pretense and face the truth of your complete self. The work starts now. The question is, are you ready to meet your shadow, or will you find another woman to blame for reflecting it? Your answer will determine whether you evolve or simply repeat. Choose wisely. Your shadow is watching and it's tired of being ignored.